Hello and welcome to this tutorial series for Blender version 2.83. Blender is a free and open source 3D software. It is full featured, that is all the components that are required in a 3D workflow pipeline. It can be used by animation studios as well as individuals. And the greatest news about it is it's absolutely free. You don't have to pay a cent. You can just go online, you download the installer and you install it to your system. Blender can be used to do one or more of the following. You can do modeling, rigging, animation, simulation, rendering, compositing, and motion tracking. You can also do video editing and game creation. The system is open source and it comes with an advanced Python-based API for scripting. This is mainly for advanced users. Blender is compatible with all the popular operating system platforms, including Windows, Linux, and Apple. To download your own copy of the latest version of Blender, you just need to go to www.blender.org. The current version at the time of recording is version 2.83. The program is a very steep learning curve, no doubt about that. But if you give yourself time to learn some of its major components, it can be a rewarding experience. In this tutorial series, our main objective is to take someone who has never used Blender before to a position where they can become an intermediate user of the system. So now I'm just going to show you how to download the Blender installer. So on your browser, you go to blender.org. So this is their homepage, and on the homepage you're going to see there's a download Blender 2.83. If you click on that, it will take you to the download page. Because my operating system here is Windows, I can just download the Windows installer. But you might have a different operating system. If you're not using Windows, just click this drop down here, and as you can see, you have Windows, you've got Mac OS for Apple, then you've got Linux, then you also have the source code. If you're a programmer, you want to add new features to the system, you can actually download the source code. That's why it is called open source code, which means you can make changes to the interface, you can make changes to the system. Okay, that's what makes this system so powerful, is various developers around the world have got access to the source code, so they can add new functionality. I'm going to download the Windows version, so I click download. Okay, so now I've got the installer ready to install. So now when you double click on the installer, you will get a wizard. So using this wizard, it's easy to just install. So if you go next, then you have to accept the license agreement as usual. So click there and then click next, then so this is the location where the system is going to install the program files. If you have any reason to change, this is when you can browse and change to the new location where you want the program files for Blender to be installed. But in this tutorial, we're just going to accept the default, which you should also. So click next. Then at this stage, the system has got all the information that it requires to start the installation. So if you click install, so now the system is being installed now. So I'll click finish. Okay, so now that we've finished installing the system, the next step is now accessing our brand new system. Okay, so you can either open the system from your program list, or if you have a desktop shortcut, you can open from the desktop shortcut. So I'm going to open the system right now. So when you open the system, this is what you see. First of all, you see there's a splash screen here that appears. In this splash screen, you can choose to open the different workspaces. So you have the general workspace, the 2D animation, sculpting, VFX, and video editing. So you can choose which workspace you're going to use. Most of our lesson, we're going to be using the general workspace. You don't even have to select the general workspace because that's the default workspace when you go into Blender. Okay, you can also open the manual, you can go to the website, also the development fund. Because it's a free software, but sometimes you might want to help the Blender Foundation with donations, then you can go to that link and see how you can also help. If you click anywhere outside of the splash screen, you are taken to this scene. We call this the default scene in Blender. So the default scene, it consists of a camera. So as you can see, there's a camera. So to select, I click the left click on my mouse, but maybe yours, you might set up that you want to select using the right click. Then this is a mesh, and in this case it's a cube. Okay, so the default mesh is a cube. Then you have the light source. So the light source will illuminate the scene, and in this case we have a point light, which is the default light source. So now let's talk about some of the main sections of this scene that we're looking at right here. So you see here where it says layout, from layout up to this space here. We call this the workspace. So these are the different workspaces. So when you're in a workspace, on the right hand side here, you have the toolbar. This area here, you see this area here, we call this the 3D viewport. This is where you do all your work. Then on the right hand side, this area up to here, we call this the outliner window. From here is the properties window. Okay, then at the bottom here, okay, let me just increase the height so that you can see. So this area here is the timeline. So you need the timeline if you're going to do animation. So you can animate your scene, but you need a timeline now to say when is this process going to happen. So those are the main areas on a Blender window. Then I'm going to also talk about the gizmo. It's called the gizmo. For example, if I select this cube here, if you go here, do you see there it says move? So if I click on it, do you see now I've got that blue, green and red? The blue is to move on the z-axis. If I want to move this on the z-axis, I do that. Okay. If I want to move on the green, which is the y-axis, okay, so it's fixed on the other axis, but it's moving that's on one axis. Or the red, which is the x-axis, I can do that. Okay, I can move my mesh in those axes. Okay, that's why this one is called 3D, because it has got the 3 axes, which is the x, y, z axis. Okay, so this is the move. Then we also have the rotate. So if I click on rotate, you see I've got all the red colors as well, which for x, y, z. So if I want to rotate this on the x-axis, I can just hold that red, then I can rotate on the x-axis. If I want to rotate on the y-axis, okay, I can rotate on the y-axis while the other axes are fixed, and same as the blue, which is the z-axis. Then you go here, this one is to scale. If you click on this one, is to scale. If you want to scale on one axis, okay, like the y-axis, I'm scaling on the y-axis, but the other axes are remaining constant, or the z-axis. Or if I want to scale everything at the same time, I do that. So everything is being scaled in equal proportion. So that's what we call the gizmo. So now I just want to show you something, guys. We talked about the camera and the lights. If I go here on the right hand side, I can use this to zoom. I can also use this to move. So if I click this and move my scene, which is panning, you can also use this one to toggle between the scene, which is what we are looking at now, and the camera view. Because right now, as you can see, we are looking like we are a third party person looking to someone taking a camera, and we can see everything. But sometimes it might make it easier for you to see your final result if you are looking through the lens of the camera. How do you do that? So you can toggle using this. Click on this. This is what the camera is looking at right now. Okay, so let me just scale this down so that we can see the whole square. Okay, so if we scale this down, so this is what we are looking at through the lens of our camera. I can then say I want to move this maybe to the center of the camera angle. Okay, I can move it there and I can move it there. So you can see now the object, which is the mesh, a cube in this case, is now in the center of the camera view. So now even if I render this now, I'll get a render of this image like how I'm seeing it now. So this is very important, guys. You need to have a view, and the good thing about this camera view is you can pan, you can do everything while it's looking at the subject. I'm going to delete this. I've deleted you just click the X button and choose delete. How do you add a new mesh? So to add a new mesh, you go to add, then mesh. So there are various types of meshes that you can add as a starting point of your your work. So you can do a plane. Let's add a plane. So as you can see, this is what we call the 3D cursor. When you add a mesh, it adds it to the 3D cursor. What we need to do now is we want to scale this mesh so that it covers much ground. You can do shortcuts using your keyboard. So if you click S, okay, it's ready to scale now, and you just type 100 on your keyboard. So as you can see, now it has been scaled. You click enter. Then the next thing, we want to add another mesh. So we've got our floor now. So if you go add mesh, add a sphere. Okay. Now what we can do, if you go here where it says view, and you go to viewpoint and front. So we want to view this scene from the front. So if we do that, so as you can see, this red line, which is the x-axis, which is the horizontal floor, that mesh is cutting through the floor, but that's not what we want. We want to move it so that it is sitting on the floor. So how do we do that? So what we need to do is we need to move this sphere up until it is just touching the red axis, which is the x-axis. So I hold that gizmo and I just move it until it just touches like that. When I'm looking from the front, it is just touching the x-axis. I can view from other angles. So if I go to top, okay, I can view from the top, so I can see the floor and I can see the sphere from the top. For example, you look, there's the camera here. When I'm looking from the right like this, the camera is here and the light source is there. So the chances are the camera is not, it's illuminating on the wrong side. So if, imagine you have a light this side, your camera is taking from this side, but you want your light to be this side so that it's well illuminated from the perspective of the camera. So like for example, let's see if we can just render this scene and show you what I mean. So if I click render image, you see, if I render the image, this is how it looks like. It's too dark from the angle where the light is because the light is on the opposite side. So we need to fix that. So how do we fix that? We fix that by moving the light source to where the camera is, okay, from this side. If I render now, do you see now that's it better? You see, that's better because the light is now on this side. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so let's make sure our light is perfect. So we've moved the light here when we're doing it from the right. Then let's look from the left. If we look from the left, there's our light. Maybe we'll just put it down a little bit because we don't want the shadows that is casting there. Okay, so you see there, it's illuminating from this side. Okay, now let's make a kitchen bowl. What we're going to do here, if you're going to, you need to make changes to this mesh, because remember, when you have a mesh, it's just a starting point, whatever you want to make. So you can make virtually anything, whether it's a cup, it's a dish, a chair, a bed, a house. You can use it for anything that you want to model. So in this case, I want to show you how you can model something that is easy. So what you're going to do is you select the mesh. Once you select that, so you see there, by default we're in object mode, but we're going to change that edit mode. So once you are in edit mode, this is what you see. Okay, we want to change this to a mesh so that we can see the other side as well. And also when we do our transformations, they transform even what we can't see. Because if I transform now, it will just transform what I can see. Remember, this is a 3D view, but we can't see what's behind there. So if you go here on the top, so you see this one, it's called viewpoint shading. If I click on it, now I get a mesh. So as you can see, it's a mesh. Okay, so if I click outside to unselect everything, then I click B, you see the B, I can now select the vertices that I want. So if I select just the top part of this, okay, as you can see, it has only selected the top bit. I can then delete. If I click delete on my keyboard, if I click delete on the keyboard, the system is going to ask you now to say, what do you want to delete? So I want to delete my vertices. You can delete vertices, you can delete edges, you can delete faces. Okay, I'm going to explain the difference between those three, vertices, edges, and faces, okay? I'm going to do that, but for now, just click where it says vertices, okay? So once you do that, if you click your middle mouse button, you see there, and what we're going to do now, we don't need the wireframe anymore of our ball. So you're gonna say here, back to object mode. So you see this one, we're on the viewpoint shading. So we're going to change this to this one. So this is the solid mode, okay? So on the solid mode, when you look at our ball, when you look at our ball like that from the top, you can see the edges are too sharp. Okay, so now we can start giving properties that we want to our ball. So if you click the ball here, and as you can see there, that's the sphere, and these are the properties of the sphere. Okay, so you can give it as many different properties, which is the type of material, the color. Okay, we need to add some thickness. So how do we do that? Okay, so if you go here, you see here there's a range. This range here, it's called a modifier. So if I click on the modifier, I'm now able to add modifier effects to the ball. So if I click add modifier, the modifier that I want to add now is called the solidify modifier. So if I select solidify, okay, so these are the properties that I can add to the ball. So the one that I'm after is the thickness here. Okay, I want to increase the thickness. So as you can see, as I'm increasing the thickness, as you can see it's more thicker now than it was before, which is more realistic than it was. So I can apply that modifier. So now I want to add another modifier. As you can see, at the moment the ball is rough in terms of the faces. So these are all the different faces on the ball. They're a bit rough. So I want to make it smooth and so that it has more multi-resolution. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add another modifier. So I'm still in the modifier, add another modifier, but this one that I'm going to send is called subdivision surface. Subdivision surface. So if you click subdivision surface, so you see by default it has already added more geometry to the ball. Okay, so as you can see, if I render this, it has got 2 subdivisions, but on this viewport I've got 1 subdivision. If I increase on the viewport, so you see it's now even more smoother, more geometry, but I can even increase it further. Let's increase it to maybe 4. So both render and viewport is now 4, and as you can see, it looks more smooth. The ball is looking more smooth like the normal kitchen ball. Okay, so I'm going to apply that. So apply. So now that the ball is coming up nicely, now the next thing that we need to do is we need to apply the material to the floor and to the ball. So let's start with the ball, since we are already on the ball right now. With the ball selected like this, you go on here. So this one is the material properties. So if you click on material, then you need to add a new material. So normally what I would do is I would just say you need to give your material a name. Okay, so you know, because once you have a scene with various items and they're not labeled nicely, you end up making a couple of mistakes. So this is the ball material. Then what type of surface is that ball? Okay, so if you click surface here, you see you can choose whatever. It can be a shader where you want to mix between different surfaces, or you can just choose one of these default ones. So for example, okay, I'm going to use this. You can either use glass if it's a glass ball, or you can use glossy. Okay, so I'm going to use glossy for now. Okay, so when I choose glossy, I can choose the color of the ball. Okay, so if you choose color, maybe let's say the ball is red in color. Then you can increase the roughness. There are lots of things that you can do. Is it opaque? If it's a glass, you don't want it to be opaque, so you want the light to go through. If it's opaque, it means light doesn't go through. Light bounces from it. So if I go to viewport display, I want to put the same color as the render. This is the render color, but at the moment, you see, I need to change that so that I can also see the same color on my viewport. So as you can see, that's the ball, how it will look when we finish our render. So let's say we are happy with that red color there. Now, we want to give some material properties to the floor. Okay, so if you click the floor, which is this plane here, and go to, we're still on materials, then you click new material, you highlight that and you say plane material. Okay, then for the material, you need to choose what type of material is that that floor. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to choose use nodes, and I'm just choose a color. So let's say our floor is, what color can we give our floor? That dark gray like that. then same as the viewport. Okay, maybe that light blue. So as you can see now, we've got a blue floor and a red bow sitting on it. Okay, let's see how we view this from the camera. So this is how you view it from the camera. And if I move this in the x-axis, okay, so select that, move this in the x-axis, move this in the y-axis, somewhere here. Okay, then I can scale it. Let me just scale it a little bit. Okay. Okay, that's more like how I want my picture to come out. So now let's do a quick render and see how this looks. So if I go to render image, so render, then render image. So this is how the image is rendered. So I'm not happy there with my light source. Let's change the light where the light is coming from. Okay, so the other thing that I just want to show you now is if I click on the light source, so you have different types of light sources. It can be a point light, the sun, spotlight, or area. On the light source here, you can also increase the wattage. So as you can see, the power there is 1000 watts. To make it look better, I'm going to increase the wattage there. So maybe I'll just type there to say I want 2000 watts. As you can see, there's the shadows and everything, and there's the edges, and basically that's how you create a ball. This was just a quick lesson that I just wanted to show you guys how to do this. I'm going to be posting more videos to develop from what we've done up to now. There's lots of things to learn. Like I said, it is a very steep learning curve, but if you are interested and prepared to put in the hours, you can do this. And this is just the tip of the surface. Animation studios like Disney, when they make their movies, all those cartoons that you see on TV, they use this particular type of systems, because you can make characters, you can animate, you can do everything with Blender. So guys, please share this video with your friends and family, like, subscribe to our channel and on our Facebook page. Let us know if you have any special requests with regards to 3D modeling and animation. Cheers.